Holy shit, that's a lot of drugs.
When we think of the centers of the global drugs trade, we tend to think of places like South America, Mexico, or Afghanistan. But one of the most crucial and heavily armed hubs of global narco-trafficking lies in the lawless region of Southeast Asia, largely ruled by insurgent warlords.
เขารู้เป็นเจ้าที่เขาสั่งเราสั่งหยุดเขาไม่หยุดยิงเขากดเคโม
This is how a combination of Chinese communists, international gangsters, and disastrous global drug policy created a hyper-violent focal point for the world's methamphetamine trade. This is the story of the Golden Triangle. Southeast Asia's Golden Triangle refers to an area covering the intersecting borders of Myanmar, Laos, and Thailand. In recent years, this region has emerged as the world's fastest growing source of methamphetamine, supplying the Asian and Australian markets, where it's known as yaba or ice.
ยาเสพติดที่ผมเอามาตอนนี้ก็คือเป็นยาไอซ์กับยาบ้าอันนี้คือยาไอซ์ทั้งหมดเนี่ยมี4 ถุงละครึ่งกิโลกรัมก็ทั้งหมด2 กิโลเวลาทำจะไม่ให้ใครรู้เด็ดขาดไม่ว่าเพื่อนหรือ
But to understand how the Golden Triangle became a global narcotics hub, we have to go back to the Communist Revolution in China. When Mao Zedong's communists seized control of China in 1949, one of their priorities was to stamp out the opium trade, which had become a symbol of British colonialism. And after a brutal campaign of repression, the opium market in China was largely eradicated. This is sometimes held up as a rare example of successful drug prohibition, even if Mao did manage to kill up to 60 million people in the process. But the gangsters who ran the Chinese opium business didn't disappear. They just slipped over the border to Myanmar, known as Burma at the time, and set up new poppy fields to supply the world's growing demand for heroin. The heroin trade in Asia was accelerated by the Vietnam War, with up to 20% of US soldiers developing a dependence on the drug. Gradually, this booming trade in the Golden Triangle came under the control of criminal warlords in command of huge private armies. The most successful of these narco warlords was Kun Sa, whose Shan State Army fought running wars with the Burmese and Laotian armies for decades. During the 1970s and 80s, Kun Sa was thought to control 45% of the heroin hitting the streets of New York City.
The individual primarily responsible for this worldwide devastation of drug addiction is Kung Sa and his United Shan Army. He has delivered as much evil to this world as any mafia don has ever done in our history.
Estimates range between like 10,000 to 40,000 people that he could have controlled. He had some serious weaponry and he could phrase himself as some kind of freedom fighter, but really it was the opium power that he had built. He laid the foundation for the illicit economy, which Myanmar is still based on today.
The Golden Triangle heroin trade was eventually disrupted, not because the warlords were defeated, but by events thousands of miles away. In 1979, the Soviet Union invaded Afghanistan, kickstarting opium production there. Gradually, the market shifted and a new set of heroin kingpins in Afghanistan and Pakistan eclipsed those in Myanmar and Laos. And in 1996, Kun Sa himself announced his retirement from the opium business.
He'd already developed his finances into so-called legitimate revenue like real estate and mining. Kun Sa was able to live out his days in Yangon, the actual capital of the country. Kun Sa and his family have developed enough legitimate business links that they're able to continue to essentially operate on his legacy as well as the direct enterprises that he helped create.
But the Golden Triangle's warlords weren't going to just give up on the illicit drugs trade. There's simply too much money to be made in it. Instead, they found a new drug to manufacture, methamphetamine.
Holy shit, that's a lot of drugs.
Army, police, and being guarded very seriously. We're looking at $26 million worth of ketamine and yaba right here.
Meth is fundamentally a lot easier to produce than heroin. You can take small chemical precursors produced in China, they can cross over the border without detection, and then a few small laboratories can create enormous quantities of drugs that would bring you greater amount of profit than you would if you had thousands of acres of poppy fields.
เป็นวิดีโอเกี่ยวกับการผลิตยาบ้าซึ่งเป็นการผลิตของชนกลุ่มน้อยครับชนกลุ่มน้อยกลุ่มหนึ่งที่อยู่ในประเทศพม่าตั้งโรงงานอยู่ที่หนึ่งอยู่บนเขาและตัวนี้ที่ว่าถ่ายมาได้ก็คือเพื่อน เข้าไปคุกคีอยู่ในกลุ่มนี้ตัวนี้วันละ 400,000 กว่าเม็ดเพราะเป็นเครื่องรุ่นใหม่ก็วันก็ประมาณ 400,000 กว่าเม็ด
By far the most prominent of the new wave of Golden Triangle narco armies is the United Wa State Army, a splinter group of the Burmese Communist Party based in the semi-autonomous Wa State on Myanmar's border with China.
ดูที่ตองเก้า
ครับ
ตองเก้าเนี่ยจะเป็นกลุ่มของวา
So this is pretty interesting. The 999 5 stars stamped onto the packet of drugs. That's actually the logo of the syndicate behind the production of this batch of drugs.
The Wa army moved into many of the areas formerly controlled by Kun Sa, converting them from heroin to meth production. But unlike Kun Sa, the modern Wa army enjoy the backing of a major superpower, China.
Backed by the Chinese state with weapons and funds, the Wa army have been dubbed by the US government the most heavily armed narco traffickers in the world.
The Chinese government likes to maintain relationships with as many parties as it can in Myanmar. The relationship specifically of the Wa is super complicated, it's super dense, but the main factor is these border areas of China are kept secure. The amount of drugs and arms that go back into China are limited. And in return, Wa State militants are able to operate an enormous drug trade, are able to receive huge amounts of weapons from China.
So where is all the Golden Triangle meth actually going? Meth is massively popular throughout East Asia, notably in Thailand and the Philippines.
ยาบ้ากับยาไอเนี่ยจะเป็นพวกกลุ่มไฮโซที่ชอบใช้กันเพราะว่าค่อนข้างมีมูลค่าที่แพงราคาแพงกลุ่มไฮโซพวกดาราอะไรพวกนี้ก็จะชอบใช้กันยาบ้ากับกลุ่มวัยรุ่นทั่วไปว่ากลัวไหมก็รู้สึกกลัวนะครับเพราะว่าการที่ว่าโดนจับได้ของประมาณ2 กิโลเนี่ยโทษก็อยู่ที่ประมาณ20 ปี
In Thailand, brutal government crackdowns on users have completely failed to slow down demand for the drug.
I feel very upset about what happened here in the region. So we should unite to fight against drug.
อันนี้คือตัวน้ำแข็งคือนี่นะหรือยาไอซ์นะครับที่ประเทศไทยเขาเรียกว่ายาบ้านะครับน้ำแข็งกับตัวยาบ้าผสมกันฟอยคือตัวนี้นี่คือตัวที่จะทำตัวนี้นะถ้าบ้านทางประเทศไทยเขาเรียกว่าตำเรือนะครับ
But the real prize for the Golden Triangle kingpins are the markets of Australia and New Zealand, where meth fetches a far higher price than it does in Southeast Asia. Australia has some of the highest per capita meth use in the developed world. And this trade is largely controlled by biker gangs who formed alliances with the Golden Triangle meth producers to create a multi-billion-dollar criminal network.
We're seeing very much a growth in criminal motorcycle gangs, I think primarily in response to the growth in the use of recreational drugs in Australia, particularly methamphetamine.
These billions are widely believed to be laundered through a complex range of shadowy institutions run by Chinese organised crime groups through Hong Kong's financial markets.
It's always very difficult to put exact numbers on what the drug trade is actually worth. Law enforcement likes to always try to increase the number that it is. Reality, we know that this trade within Southeast Asia alone is worth tens of billions of dollars. A lot of that money does end up back inside China.
The Western Australian police are making historic cash seizures. In just 6 weeks, they've seized $32 million connected to the meth trade and the biker gangs.
Back in the 19th century, Britain flooded China with opium. But today, the geopolitics have shifted. Precursor chemicals and guns fly out of China into the Golden Triangle. Meth streams into neighborhoods from Bangkok to Brisbane, and the laundered cash winds up back in Hong Kong and China. We may be witnessing the birth of a new informal narco-colonialism. But one thing that doesn't change is that in an illegal market, it is the traffickers, warlords, and corrupt officials who reap the rewards.
We'd like to congratulate drugs for winning the war on drugs.